In terms of etymology, the word Azazel comes from the root iz, ayin zayin, which means goat, and the verb azal, aleph zayin lamed, meaning to go, to remove. Thus, Azazel signifies a goat that is sent away. Some interpret Azazel as a proper name. The reason for this usage, once again, may be due to the idea that Azazel seems to stand in opposition to Yahweh, God. However, if this term refers to a famous evil spirit of the wilderness or a name for Satan, it is peculiar that the term only appears here in the entire Bible. And if it refers to an evil spirit that Israel feared, one with such influence that it required appeasement, it is difficult to understand why the emphasis should be on distancing this threatening figure further and further as Israel moved towards Canaan. There is also an interpretation that Azazel is a desert-dwelling demon, according to the footnote in the CEV Bible, but this seems challenging to accept. After all, the first goat was offered to God, so why would the second be sent to demons? Therefore, the most reasonable interpretation is that the name Azazel refers to the goat itself, as suggested by the etymological analysis above. There is no doubt that the goat for Azazel was released into the Judean wilderness, Hebrew Midbar Yehuda, a barren desert on the annual Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, after being led there from the temple in Jerusalem. Finally, let's consider the Septuagint, the ancient Greek translation of the Hebrew Tanakh, which predates the current Hebrew manuscripts. The Septuagint uses the term apopompaio, which combines the preposition apo, meaning out or away from, with the verb pempo, meaning to send something away. Thus, the Septuagint also supports the interpretation that Azazel refers to the goat itself. William Tyndale, 1494 to 1536, was an English scholar who translated the Bible into English. He was the first to translate directly from Hebrew and Greek texts, and the term scapegoat appears in his translation. Scapegoat combines escape plus goat, and he used this term to translate the Hebrew word Azazel. Therefore, the original meaning of scapegoat was clearly the escape goat, or the goat that escapes, as intended in Leviticus 16. However, over time, the definition of scapegoat shifted to mean a party on whom blame is placed, or the one who bears blame. Eventually, its primary meaning came to signify an innocent party made the target of blame. So, who is the goat that is sent away? It is, in fact, an allegory of Abraham's son Ishmael. Yom Kippur is a holiday commemorating the two tests Abraham faced. The first was when God instructed him to follow Sarah's wish to send Hagar and Ishmael away. The second was the event of Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac, when he was asked to offer his only remaining son. Abraham passed both tests. There is extensive discussion about Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac, in both Jewish and Christian circles. However, there is very little discussion about Ishmael. Can Ishmael indeed be seen as the true scapegoat? The origin of the term scapegoat comes from Leviticus 16, where Azazel signifies the goat that is sent away, scapegoat, a goat to make atonement, Leviticus 16:10. This is clarified further in verse 22. The goat will carry all of Israel's sins to a barren land, and the goat will be released into the wilderness. Scapegoat has become a common term, defined as a person punished for the faults of others. In this case, Ishmael is the perfect example of a scapegoat. He was a victim of the mistakes and poor behavior of others. He was punished for the faults of others, cast into the wilderness due to their wrongs. In this sense, Ishmael was indeed a scapegoat. The dramatic verses in Genesis 21 recount Ishmael's bitter experience, describing how Abraham sent his son away into the wilderness. But does the term scapegoat, in its general sense, exactly match what is meant in the Bible? We will explore the true meaning of scapegoat. Notably, the real scapegoat in the biblical sense is the one who does not die, for it is the other goat that dies. Note, in Leviticus 16, there are two goats. When the stories of Abraham's two sons are placed side by side with Leviticus 16, we can clearly see that the life of Abraham's family confirms the existence of two types of sacrifices. The sacrifice of Ishmael in Genesis 21 versus the sacrifice of Isaac in Genesis 22. Regarding the presence of the two goats, here God highlights an extraordinary resemblance between Leviticus 16 and Genesis chapters 21 and 22. Abraham's double sacrifice is mirrored in the offering of the two goats in Leviticus 16, which is read on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in Judaism. In this passage, Aaron is instructed to present the goat on which the lot falls as a sin offering before the Lord. This goat is killed. The other goat, chosen to be the scapegoat for Azazel, is left alive. This goat is presented alive before the Lord, and then sent into the wilderness to make atonement upon it. Now compare this with the two events Abraham experienced. One son was left in the wilderness, Ishmael, and the other was presented as a sacrifice, Isaac. Can we see the connection between Genesis 21 to 22 and Leviticus 16? Our Bible is full of typology and allegory, and before the fulfillment it often speaks of blood for the forgiveness of sins. This theme runs throughout the Old Testament, culminating in the sacrifice fulfilled by Christ on the cross.